Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free. 877-566-1020, or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC. Well, let's look on the bright side. The Rays have yet to be shut out here in 2021. It is a good evening to you, and how you be. William Haynes here, you there, here at 10:22 on this Wednesday night on this Rays postgame edition of the William Haynes Show. As always, it is live from the WHBC studio in Tallahassee, Florida. It is another L in the books for the Rays as they go down by a score of 5-1 to the Texas Rangers. The best the Rays can do at this point is play for a series split tomorrow. But tonight it was Josh Fleming. In his first start of 2021, he gets the loss, the first of his major league career, giving up just one run over 5 innings of work. It was a solo shot given up to Nate Lowe. And then it was Arihara going for the Rangers. He gets the win, 5 2/3 of no-run ball for Kohei Arihara. And as we discussed, basically previewing this game on last night's show, that he had not put up great numbers. He was not great at establishing the first pitch strike. The strikeout numbers weren't great or anything, but he was just a pitcher that was really hard to square up. And with the way the Rays offense has been performing up to this point, which is right in line with that, with having difficulties squaring up the baseball, there was certainly some concern for that. And Arihara has the best start of the season, and obviously with him being a rookie, I would say this is the best start so far of his major league career. He walked no one and struck out 5, which, by the way, Arihara had only struck out 2 batters total in his previous 9 innings of work, and fans 5 here over 5 2/3. The Rays offense as a total struck out 10 times and did not walk once. Base runners were fairly hard to come by throughout this game. They go 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. What else is new? And they leave a total of 6 men on base, which was the total last night as well and the night before. So, if anything, I guess the Rays right now are being somewhat consistent, and not to kind of put the Mark Tompkin doom and gloom spin on this, but I just wanted to point out tonight's game had a season low attendance of just 3,021, I guess, paying attendance. I don't know exactly what's going on, if that's going to be a theme throughout the season. I would imagine that the Rays, as the year goes on, is going to try and open up Tropicana Field to more and more people. Right now, I think it only holds about 9,000, so the fact that To begin with, they're already at about 25% capacity. The stadium can hold 40,000 thereabouts, but if you want to say 25, 30,000 is the full attendance, then maybe the 9,000 is about a third. Well, they're getting about a third of that, at least tonight, and I know maybe the Texas Rangers, with it not being a marquee opponent, has something to do with that, but you would think that your American League champions would be drawing a little more than that. But that's just me. I'm not coming out here to shame anybody or anything like that. I understand it's not an easy ballpark to get to, and times are tough right now. But something I think all Rays fans would like to see go up. I know Tropicana Field always seems a little bit empty, but a little bit extra hollow, it seemed like tonight. But with that being said, we have anyone listening, you'd like to call in and share your thoughts on the Rays, certainly this is your place to do so. The number to call the show, 877-566-1020, or you can tweet us at WHBCOfficial, and we'll read your tweet on the air, all that good stuff. But with that being said, we're going to take a short little break, allows maybe some calls to roll in, and then we'll come back and discuss everything that you need to know about tonight's loss. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Rays postgame on the William Haynes Show. We're live most nights within 15 minutes of the final out to break down everything that happened in that day's game and take listener phone calls to get your thoughts. As always, you call the show at 877-566-1020 or tweet the show at WHBCOfficial. Like you to remember that archives of previous shows can be found on this show's page on Speaker.com and also on the WHBC YouTube channel. We look forward to having some of you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
HBC. And at 10:28, we are back on the William Haynes Show, and we have someone calling in. We have Jack calling from New York City. Jack, what can you say tonight?
Winning game, huh? But I wanted to get your thoughts on the bullpen real quick. I know the talk is probably going to be a lot about Yoshi and a lot of the offense, but coming from the last couple of years, what are we looking at in this bullpen for the rest of the year? Where are we going to find innings? Because obviously Mazza's not going to do it. Strickland kind of crapshoot on where he's going to be. So where do you see us grabbing some innings, over the next couple of weeks and months that are actually going to be high quality and can keep us in these games? I saw the stat that we were, leading in 10 out of 11 games before tonight, and we can't hold any of those. So, where do you see those innings coming from? What are you thinking going forward? Kind of wanted to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, with most of the games so far, either, they're close with the Rays winning or it's garbage time and they're losing. And obviously, like you mentioned, so far they go with 3 innings of Mazza. They went 3 innings of Richards the day before, and then I know 3 innings of McHugh. And as you mentioned, also, none of them being primarily effective. I know McHugh was a guy that they brought in that was supposed to be pitching better. I know he didn't pitch all of 2020, so maybe he's still knocking off the rust, but I think McHugh is at the top of that list. Trevor Richards, another guy I think is up there as well with bulk innings. I know he had his first game of the season last night. So over the next couple weeks, I would say primarily it's just those names that you have. It's not going to be anyone coming out of the blue. It's just maybe that they'll pitch a little bit better. I know the stress is on the bullpen right now, maybe more so than any other part of the roster. Nick Anderson is going to be missing some time deep into maybe August, and Pete Fairbanks going down as well. So it is going to kind of be a sliding effect with some of those high leverage guys going down. So there's not as many 1-inning guys, and you're going to have to lean on some multi-innings. And yeah, so far not going so well. One more thing I would mention, in spring training, Kevin Cash had mentioned Cody Reed as a guy that could be a multi-inning weapon out of the bullpen, and I believe so far we've never seen him in anything more than a 1-inning stint. So that's maybe one other guy I would bring up. But outside of that, it's just the guys that we have, and they'll just have to pitch a little bit better.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up Cody Reed. I'm just looking at him from the last couple of outings, and obviously first couple of games of the season, can't read too much into it, but I'm watching a guy throw 30 pitches to get 2 outs. Right, he's wild. It seems like he's wild. It seems like he can't find the zone. Guys like that. I'm struggling as a fan to figure out where we're going to find these innings without calling up, some of our what I'd call tier A, prospects. McClanahan obviously being a starting pitcher. A couple of these other guys like Patino. Obviously it's good to see Fleming out there today. But do we have any bullpen arms in the kind of in the prospect list that you're taking a look at that you would think would be positive call-ups over the next couple months? Just let's assume that we haven't found our way with one or two of these guys that we're currently trying to rely on.
Yeah, I think that's if you would point to anything in the minor league system as maybe something that's lacking a little bit of depth, I would point to the relief pitching. As I honestly right now I'll pull up the 40-man and see who we have, but there's really not any relievers. If they decide that they really need guys that they can't
that's
start,
what I'm seeing myself, right?
They're going to have to convert maybe a guy like Luis Patino, who I know pitched in relief with the Padres last year. Shane McClanahan, who made his major league debut out of the bullpen in the postseason last year, but they've said time and time again that they're trying to get him stretched out to start. So maybe if a wrench gets thrown in the gears here, they're going to have to shake things up. But yeah, that's about it. They would have to probably convert someone.
Yeah, I was thinking on that note, do we think, Ryan Yarbrough is a candidate for that? I know he's typically been kind of that starting, maybe, with an opener role. That's the guy that first comes to mind for me, that could be that bulk inning, 4 or 5 inning guy. It's not, not in the 5-man, not in the 6-man. And he's the guy that just comes out of the pen and eats some innings for us when we need it. Because I feel like, to get through 162 after 60 last year is going to be a big challenge, as everyone knows. And, we're going to need a lot more guys than just, Tyler Glasnow throwing well. So I'm thinking that maybe that's our move if we can get Kevin Cash on the line next.
I think you may be onto something there. It looks like right now Yarbrough's next start is going to be in Yankee Stadium Sunday afternoon, and that's another right-handed power lineup, which seems to be Yarbrough's weakness. We saw the Boston Red Sox tear him up. So I think that may be something they could look at. I think as a rookie in 2018, he went somewhere along the lines of 16-5 coming out of the bullpen behind the opener, and right now he's gone, I think, 20 straight games or 20 straight decisions without a win. So maybe this starting thing really isn't Yarbrough's game right now. They move him maybe behind an opener, and then as the season goes along, maybe Brent Honeywell, Shane McClanahan, those guys come into the mix and to fill out that rotation. Because right now you do still need guys, but yeah, Yarbrough maybe just go back to a bulk guy.
Yeah, I think that'd be good to see. But anyway, that's all I got.
Well, sounds good.
Great to speak.
Yeah, Jack, thanks for the call.
Have a good one. Bye.
You too. All right, that was Jack in New York City. Great call from him, and we want to thank him for taking the time. If there's anyone else listening and they would like to make their contribution to the William Haynes Show, certainly you can do so. The number to call, 877-566-1020, and taking your tweets at WHBC Stream. So now getting into tonight's loss, the nitty, the gritty, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So for the Texas Rangers, it was 5 runs on 9 hits, no errors for them. And then for the Rays, just one run on 8 hits and no errors for them. So that's just something right off the bat that I think is a little bit interesting. The Rangers and Rays were about neck and neck with hits, and it was really just the Rangers able to come through in maybe more timely moments. They were 3 for 6 with runners in scoring position tonight. I know they were, I think, 50% in that category a day ago. So I think maybe in this series, that's the biggest difference maker right now. It's just the Rangers are coming up in big moments, and the Rays, most certainly, as they have been doing all season, are not coming up in those big moments. So it was the Rangers. They put up a run in the second inning on a solo shot for Nate Lowe, who led off the inning. There was some talk. I think Mark Tompkin on Twitter was one of the guys that put this out, basically referencing that Josh Fleming and Nate Lowe faced each other a bunch at the Rays alternate site last year. Obviously, there was no minor league, so they were just playing, scrimmage games, and, you could imagine how many at-bats took place between those two. And Nate Lowe, who had gotten off to really a white hot start to the season, I believe had 3 or 4 home runs and 14 RBIs within the first 5 games, and then he went on about an 0 for 20 stretch, and now I guess he's back in the extra base hit category with a solo shot, and that gave the Rangers the lead in the second inning. And then after that, Josh Fleming was shut down. But then you go all the way to the 7th, and at that point it was Chris Mazza in the game. And Mazza, on Friday and Saturday games against the Yankees, he had pitched back-to-back of just 1 inning. So he was brought in to be more of a multi-inning, more of a bulk guy. Looked like maybe, is he going to be a 1-inning middle reliever? And now, that I guess they stretch him back out. Basically, kind of an identical performance from what they got from Trevor Richards last night. Trevor Richards going 3 innings, 2 runs, 49 pitches, and Mazza 3 innings, 4 runs, 48 pitches. So not in a good way, kind of a carbon copy in that regard. And Mazza gives up a really tough inning there. 4 hits, single, gets a double play ball there, but then a walk, and then a double. And then there was, of course, that wonky play, the 2 RBI triple for Adolis Garcia, where it looks like it might have been a home run, then an inside-the-park homer. And after further review, they decided that he was out at home plate, but either way, the damage was already done. And, of course, at that point in the game with the Rays offense have absolutely nothing going in a 5-0 game, that was pretty much it. The only saving grace was the Brandon Lau solo shot in the 9th inning to get things started, and that was the first home run of the year for him, which I think is a pretty big deal. Did not have a home run during all of spring either, so maybe to get him on the board, and that was kind of the first time where right off the bat you could kind of hear that that Brandon Lau power. It was kind of funny. I had the radio call synced up as I was watching on Bally Sports Sun, and they had taken, I guess, an ill-timed station ID at the time of, because it was the first pitch of the inning and they missed it, and it was just, I think, kind of summed up the game really well, because it was probably the only good thing that happened for the Rays in the game, and then it was just that the radio guys weren't even on the call, so it just kind of really emphasized the point that it really didn't matter all that much, although as we do try and stay somewhat on the positive side, that was probably about the only silver lining that there was. And again, at this point, anyone listening, you want to call in, certainly you can do so, 877-566-1020. But now continuing on with our coverage of tonight's game. So the lineup that Kevin Cash submitted tonight, and there was no pinch hits or substitutions or anything of that manner. So defensively, first in the outfield from left to right, it was Meadows in left, Margot in center, Rosarena in right, and then in the infield, from third to first, it was Wendell at third, Adames at shortstop, Lau at second base, Yandy at first, Mike Zunino did the catching, and Yoshi Tsutsugo was once again the DH. And then the way the lineup was formed, Meadows led off, followed by Rosarena and Lau. Yandy Diaz cleaned up, Wendell, Margot, and a bottom 3 of Tsutsugo, Zunino, and Adames. They were going up against the right-hander Kohei Arihara, so it made sense that they wanted to get the lefties in there as much as they could. We discussed this last night, saying basically that even though we really don't want him in the lineup, Yoshi was definitely going to be in there again, whether it was at first base or DH, and he was the designated hitter tonight, and he goes 1 for 4 with a couple strikeouts, and the one hit was just a little soft grounder that just happened to be just enough against the shift to get on, and his average is right now at 158, and I think Tsutsugo is at the top of the Rays fans' hate list, I guess you want to say, without saying the other word, but Other things about the lineup, I was a little surprised that they didn't go with Brett Phillips in center field instead of Margot, the lefty-righty. I think Phillips has been extraordinarily dynamic out there in center, and had a bad game at the plate last night, but 2 days ago, or I guess his last time out, he had a couple of hits and I think a walk maybe mixed in there as well. But it looks like right now the Rays' approach with Kevin Kiermaier still out is that they're just going to go back and forth each night between Margot and Phillips, I guess, at this point, even regardless of matchups. And I know Margot is kind of one of the, not necessarily the dark horse, but just kind of a guy that you wouldn't expect, but really is an offensive contributor. He bats in the 6th spot tonight, goes 2 for 4, and his average is at 290, albeit in limited action, as we're still only 12 games into the season. By the way, with tonight's loss, the Rays drop to a tying a season low, 2 games under 500 at 5-7, and the Rangers get up to 5-7 as well. So. Not great with the Rays. And just to point out, in case we don't mention it later in the program, most of the American League East and really the rest of Major League Baseball, for that matter, is kind of in shambles. It's not like the Rays are falling, more and more behind with each and every day. Just the peek at the AL East standings, the Red Sox, after losing their first 3, they have won 9 straight, including sweeping a doubleheader today in Minnesota, so they're 9-3. So I'm not quite sure that's going to stick, but obviously they're off to a hot little start. The Blue Jays with a win today were 6-6 with a walk-off in Dunedin. The Orioles are 5-6, and both the Rays and Yankees are 5-7. So there's only one team in this division above 500, and the Rays are only 2 games under at this point. Obviously against the Rangers tomorrow, any game against this team, the hope is that you should be able to win. This really should have been a series win. We pointed this out when we were previewing the month of April, that this was a chance for the Rays to get out to a hot start and maybe put some space between them and the rest of their division rivals, but that has certainly not been the case. They're pretty much just treading water at this point. They're 3-7 in their last 10 games. By the way, a negative 22 run differential, but that's mostly because a lot of their losses early on came in blowout fashion, rather. And as it stands right now, they're 4 games back of the Red Sox, and they do have 3 games in Yankee Stadium this weekend, and who knows how that goes, but that could be a chance to maybe make up some ground against the Yankees team that is having just as rough of a start as the Rays are, as both the teams are 5-7. Any other thoughts about the lineup? It seems like the infield, this is kind of the traditional setup. Wendell is going to be probably the mainstay at third base. Mike Brasso, kind of surprisingly, has not gotten a ton of playing time to start the year. There was multiple times where he could have pinch hit, perhaps for Setsugo. There were some lefty-righty spots, but Cash opts to let Setsugo stay at bat. Setsugo had mentioned that he was suffering from kind of some pressure of having to hit leadoff, which I thought the whole point of having him in the leadoff spot was to avoid that, but it seems that idea ended up being counterproductive. They moved him down to the 6th spot last night, 7th spot here tonight, and he said that he felt like he was getting a little bit closer to success with his swing and timing and all that. From what we're seeing on the field, I don't think that's bearing out just quite yet, so maybe it gets turned around, maybe it doesn't. He goes 1 for 4. I kind of view it as an 0 for 4 because it was just a weak grounder, which is, like a lot of his at-bats when he's not striking out. Not to, I feel like I'm nailing the guy a little bit too hard, but compared to the rest of the Rays fan base out there, I would say my analysis is relatively mild because a lot of guys want this guy gone. As I've said before, and I'll say again, he's the second highest paid player on this Rays roster this year. He's owed $7 million. The Rays owe it to themselves to give this guy a chance because of the investment that they made in him. The Rays seems like they make maybe one splash free agent signing a year, and after the 2019 season rather, it was Setsugo that they decide to pick up over from Japan, and really ever since donning a Rays uniform, he has not really found much success at all, and that certainly continued tonight. But yeah, going down one by one now. Austin Meadows in the leadoff spot. He goes 1 for 4, no walks, no strikeouts. His average right now is at 238, an on-base percentage of 385. So he's still doing a really good job of getting on base. The walks, the hit by pitches certainly have been there for Meadows. Not as much the hits. I think he's still leading the team in home runs with 3. I thought he worked a pretty good leadoff at bat against Kohei Arihara, which I did not realize this. He's one of those guys who's got a 7-pitch mix. He's kind of like a Yu Darvish type, and sinker, fastball, cutter, changeup, slider, curveball, whatever. He's got them all. But Meadows was able to work a 7-pitch at bat, got a pretty decent pitch, a changeup, a little bit down and away, and he flies out to center there to start the game. But I've been kind of clamoring for Meadows to get back into the leadoff spot, somewhere he played a lot in 2019. I don't think not as much in 2020, but with how anemic Setsugo has been, especially leading off, I thought that maybe either Meadows or Yandy Diaz was going to be that top candidate to replace Yoshi, and it looks like Meadows is there right now. I think really righty-lefty doesn't even matter, but he got the advantage going up against the right-hander tonight. So a pretty good leadoff at bat for him, although it was a flyout. Then he hit a one-out single with nobody on in the third. He's able to scoot over to second base on a wild pitch to get over in scoring position. He flies out to right to start the sixth, and then pops out to the shortstop in the eighth inning with nobody on. So, you go 1 for 4, a decent leadoff at bat, that's fine. And there was no real place over to him defensively besides things that were, I think, routine, unless I'm missing something. Arozarena in right, he goes 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. I know he was hitless, I think, a couple nights ago that snapped his, 8 or 9 game hitting streak. So that's out of the picture now. But a tough game for him at the plate. A couple of bats where he just looked a little bit confused, was taking fastballs, which is a little uncharacteristic of him, and was chasing after some pitches in the dirt. I understand that's kind of Arihara's game, and that's what he wants guys to do, but he definitely fell victim to it. His average right now is at 289, so he's still one of the Rays' better hitters, and then an on-base percentage of about 350. So is still probably the second or third best hitter, maybe even the first best hitter on this lineup. It's hard to tell. It kind of goes back and forth. It seems like they've only got about 4 guys that are going at this point. He grounded out in a 1-2-3 in the first, struck out with Meadows on base, which was tough to see. Grounded out in a 1-2-3 in the sixth, and then struck out in a 1-2-3 in the eighth. So I point out that they were all 1-2-3 innings, basically just to say that while he did have a tough game at the plate, it wasn't like he was the only one, and it's not like he was coming up in these clutch situations or anything either. I mean, it was just no one was really doing much of anything offensively, and Arozarena was right there with them. But I think he's still going to be that mainstay at the 2 spot in the order, and they certainly need him to continue his game. I know he's hit his first 2 home runs of the season on this homestand. Maybe he could pick up one tomorrow and give this offense a boost. Who knows? Batting in a 3 spot was Brandon Lau. I thought that they were probably going to keep him at cleanup. They opt to go Yandy there tonight. So, moving up from 4 up to 3, not that that's too big of a deal, but that just was the case. He goes 1 for 4, obviously with that solo home run, so he does get a run batted in as well and a strikeout. He is right now right at the Mendoza line at 200 and on base of 319, so he's right up there. Pretty much not much to say. He did come up with Meadows at second base in the third inning and flew out to right, although that was, I think, Joey Gallo making a running catch over there, if I'm not mistaken. So was a pretty good line drive, and it just didn't go their way. And then he struck out in a 1-2-3 in the sixth. But good to see him get on the board there, and obviously he was doing his thing, turning double plays at second base and whatnot. In the cleanup spot, Yandy Diaz, he goes 2 for 4, no walks, no strikeouts. Yandy, a guy that I think is, I'm really pleased with how he's been doing offensively. And also, by the way, defensively has been quite tremendous as well. Was doing the G-Man Choi patented splits over there at first base. He's shown that he can flash the leather over at third in spring training. We haven't seen as much in the regular season. That's kind of more Joey's spot right now. And Joey, to his credit, Wendell playing a spectacular third base. So I think with Setsugo kind of being squeezed out a little bit, and by the way, G-Man Choi is probably about a month away, 3 or 4 weeks maybe from being back in the starting lineup, and I think by that point you could potentially be kissing goodbye to Setsugo, because there's no, if G-Man Choi comes back at least somewhat decent, there is no spot for Yoshi on this roster. He's not going to be playing third, he's not going to be in left, And maybe he's your DH every other day, but that's about it. And maybe like a pinch hitter against righties. I don't know, but he's not been good at the plate anyway. So maybe we're close to putting this kind of Yoshi experiment to bed. I don't know. Like I said, they still owe him a lot of money, so they're going to try and give it a chance. It's not like they can trade him or anything, and obviously they're not going to cut him. So I don't know exactly what's going to be going on with there. But just wanted to make the point that Yandy Diaz, I think, is an interesting piece because I think he would make a pretty good leadoff hitter. I'm not sure if we've seen that maybe once or twice. He's a good cleanup hitter as well because at times, more so, it's been 2019 since we've seen it, but he's shown some power. We know with the big biceps, all those things. And right now, he's probably one of the better players off, position players that the Rays have on the roster right now. Batting .286, an on-base percentage of .405. The batting eye is still there. He's still drawing the walks, and getting a multi-hit night is a pretty big thing for him. He did get a leadoff single in the second. He was waved home after a double by Wendell that followed, and then it was kind of a weird thing. Third base coach Rodney Linares initially put up the stop sign and then started to wave him home as Joey Gallo kind of lost the ball over there in right field. I believe Kevin Cash said that Yandy kind of missed the sign. Here it is from Topkin. Cash said there seemed to be some kind of miscommunication on the play. But then that was it. So could have maybe come home to score. I think it was the right move, I guess, in the end, because a guy like Yandy, it takes a while to get him going, as Dave Will said on the radio call. So holds there at third. But that was a point, by the way, and I guess talk about burying the lead. That was kind of another big moment that the Rays squandered. They had first and second with nobody out, and kind of the bottom of the order. And Margot, Setsugo, and Zanino they're all not able to come through, and that was kind of carbon copy, somewhat, of a spot last night where it's first and second and nobody out, and Yoshi, Adames, and Phillips were all making outs. And again, this team has been absolutely horrendous with runners in scoring position. This is dating back even to 2020, even when things were going pretty well. So I don't know exactly what the fix to that is, because it's not like they've ever really been good in that regard. So it's not like things are going to all of a sudden change now. But to the greater point of Yandy, got that leadoff single in the second, flew out to right in the fourth, that I think was a pretty deep flyout. Another leadoff single in the seventh, and then grounded out after Lau's homer. So another multi-night for Yandy. Really pleased with his performance. I think, again, could be maybe the backup cleanup hitter, if you will, but I think if he's not hitting leadoff or cleanup, I think really at that 3 spot could be something good. I would really like to see that, where they go Meadows leadoff, Arozarena 2, maybe Yandy 3, and Lau 4, which is not much different than they did tonight. But I think that could be kind of a mainstay lineup. I know Cash likes to shake things up, but maybe this team could use some consistency right now, and that would certainly be what I like to see. And then moving on to Wendell now, and the 5 spot I think is perfect for him. Played a great third base tonight. He goes 1 for 4. He's still batting .300, .303, and on base at .324. He did have another extra base hit, one of only 2 for the Rays tonight, and getting a double in his second straight, obviously with Yandy on first base. And then there was not much going on after that. He did kind of ground into somewhat of a double play, although unconventional, with Yandy at first in the 7th inning, and then grounded out in the 9th. So, not a bad game for Wendell. So I would say a good game. 1 for 4 with a double and good defense. We'll take that more times than not, especially. And then Manuel Margot, he goes 2 for 4 with a strikeout. Seems like he's been kind of hot and cold, and he's had a pretty rough start to the game. The first 2 at-bats, he was really struggling against Arihara, and then hit singles in his last 2 at-bats. Got on first in the 7th, and then hit a single as well in the 9th with nobody on and a couple of outs. And just breaking news to break up the program, Carlos Rodon of the Cleveland Indians tosses a no-hitter, he tosses a no-hitter for the White Sox in their 8-0 win over the Indians. He allowed a first base runner on hit by pitch with 1 out in the 9th, so almost a perfect game. So we just got news of that right now. So already we're only 12 games into the season, and we already have 2 no-hitters. Joe Musgrove against the Rangers about a week ago, and now with Rodon of the White Sox. And what a rotation, I guess, they have in the south side of Chicago. I know they've got a couple of guys, Lance Lynn, Lucas Giolito, and I guess Carlos Rodon can't be too bad himself either. So I think the Rays will see them. Obviously, they will see him a couple times down the line. But anyway, back to your regularly scheduled programming. Margot, once he was facing some relievers and they got the starter out of there, had some pretty decent at-bats and he got on base and has been a pretty good center fielder as well. Yoshi at the DH spot, 1 for 4, as we said, 2 strikeouts. I already kind of mentioned this, so not going to belabor the point. He did strike out with men at second and third and 1 out. Let's take a peek at that at-bat that took place in the second inning just to see what he was looking at. Took a fastball well outside for ball 1, then swung through a cutter, middle up. Took another pitch well outside, so 2 balls, 1 strike. Fouled off a fastball up and in, and then chased the slider outside. It looked like he was geared up for off speed, but it was at least a baseball off the plate. I understand with 2 strikes, that's a difficult pitch to take, but he certainly should have. And a guy that's been striking out a ton, that trend certainly continues. And then there was no other really huge spot for him. He did hit a single with a man on first and a couple outs, so hey, man, good for him moving the baseball. And then fittingly so struck out for the final out of the ball game. Mike Zunino tonight goes 0 for 3 with a couple of strikeouts. His average is now down to 148, 233 on base. Played fine catcher tonight. There was not, too many big spots where he was having to go dive, to block pitches or anything like that. He struck out with men at second and third. He grounded out in a 1-2-3 and also struck out with men at first and second. So he was he came up in the biggest spots, really. He was the only guy that got multiple at-bats with runners in scoring position. He goes 0 for 2 in that regard. Margot, Lau, and Setsugo were all 0 for 1 tonight as the team. Obviously, you can do the math. They go 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. And then in the 9th spot, Willie Adames, he goes 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. He's right at the Mendoza line as well, 200 to 238 on base, so not going too well for him. He's been good defensively. I think only maybe 1 error to his name over 12 games, so not bad. A fly out to center to get the 3rd inning started, struck out in a 1-2-3 in the 5th, and then struck out to start the 8th, so no really big spots for him necessarily, and just a rough day at the plate. If it wasn't for his home run on Monday, I think that would have been a big deal because Tyler Glass, now 7 2/3 gem, would have gone away. So I guess it's not a complete loss for the homestand for Willie offensively, but the last couple nights has had a really enough night at the plate. Now going over to the pitching side, it was Josh Fleming being called up. He was on the taxi squad, and they were thinking with Chris Archer's spot in the rotation needing to be replaced, this was going to be Rich Hill's day, but they push Hill down a spot. He'll pitch tomorrow. They give him an extra 5th day of rest. The 41-year-old going 6 innings on opening day, or the home opener. So that worked out. And so I guess it was probably Fleming's turn to pitch, whether at the alternate site or at the big leagues. And there was some discussion as to whether he would pitch behind an opener or start outright. They give him the start, his first of 2021, if you recall. He was 5-0 in the season last year with like a 2.3 ERA or something along those lines. He gets the first loss of his major league career, 5 innings pitched, 1 run on 4 hits, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. The only run allowed was the solo shot to Nate Lowe, and we have another call going, so we're going to go ahead and take this. It looks like we have another first-time caller on the William Haynes Show. Would you mind giving us your name and where you're calling us from?
Patrick, Orlando.
All right, Patrick, what can you say tonight?
What are we talking about? I'm sorry.
Just talking about the Rays game tonight.
Yeah, so it doesn't mean so much about that. I'm asking about the future of the Rays in the community and
It looks like Patrick is breaking up. We lost him there. So, Patrick, if you're still listening, go ahead and give us a call back. I'm not quite sure what happened there. If it was on my end, I certainly apologize. But getting back to what we were discussing, Josh Fleming, I think overall a good start. He ends up getting the loss, which is unfortunate. Really just without the lack of run support, I think kind of was the biggest thing. 84 pitches, 55 thrown for strikes. He was 14 for 21 in establishing the first pitch strike. So I think overall, not a bad start. You would like to, maybe see him get another turn or two through the rotation if they decide to keep him up in the big leagues. I'm hoping that would be the case. It doesn't look like they've sent him down at this time, and they've got the 26-man roster still filled out. So we'll wait and see on that. And that's really all I can say. The 2 walks, not bad. With a guy like him that generates the weak contact and things of that nature, you don't want guys getting on base free of charge. And only 2 strikeouts. He's not a strikeout guy necessarily. And then 84 pitches, 55 for strikes. Could have definitely done a better job in that regard. It seemed like he was missing arm side to right-handed hitters, like it basically pitches in the left-handed batter's box, so to speak. And so maybe that's something that could get cleaned up. I can't imagine that was by design. So we'll see. Maybe I would imagine he'll get a turn next time through the rotation, as I guess he's taken over Chris Archer's spot. It looks like right now that Chris Archer threw today, I guess for the first time since coming out of Saturday's ball game with the lateral forearm tightness, and it said that he still felt a little off. So it looks like maybe they're going to keep him on the shelf a couple more days, and he's still on the injured list. So I would imagine he'll probably miss at least one more time through the rotation, so that would give Fleming another chance to start and maybe get his first win of 2021. Coming in relief, and it was still a close ball game. It was 1-0 after 5. They go to Chris Mazza. I'm not quite sure if he was what the plan was. I can't imagine that it was to go a full 3 innings, but it ended up going that way, as basically Chris Mazza himself put the game into a situation where it was garbage time. Fleming, by the way, which I hadn't mentioned, he did come out to start the 6th. When he was pitching in the 5th, I think they had Cody Reed warming, and then he sat down when the Rays were on offense. Then Fleming, I guess, talks himself maybe into staying into the ball game, and then in the 6th inning, gives up a single to David Dahl and walks Joey Gallo. So it was 1st and 2nd with nobody out, and so they go to the bullpen. They have the righty Mazza warming because it was the righty Garcia coming up, the lefty Lowe, and then the righty Solak. So you want to go with the righty there in that spot. Chris Mazza comes in at that point, so maybe that's not necessarily his spot, but thankfully he was able to get out of it. Gives up a single to Garcia, so that loaded the bases with nobody out. Thanks to some nifty defensive plays, the Rays were able to get out of it, and I would say that's certainly the bright spot maybe of this team right now is how they're playing defensively, getting more of those plus plays, taking away hits, taking away runs, things like that. It was a ground out to Nate Lowe. It goes straight to Yandy Diaz. He steps on the bag to put him out and then goes over to second to get Garcia, who's running over there. So they get the double play. They hold the runner at third, and then Nick Solak grounds out to Wendell, and Wendell had to make a kind of a running grab to pick it up and throw to first, and a nice pick from Yandy to get out of that inning. And then you're wiping the sweat from the brow. You're thinking maybe you catch a break. It was still 1-0. Maybe the Rays offense can get going. They don't. And then in the 7th with Mazza, a leadoff single to Jonah Heim, then another single to Charlie Culberson. Does get another double play from Leota Taveras, so they did, there was 2 outs there. But then, back to the top of the order, they had a runner, I guess at that point, I want to say was at third base. He walks the leadoff man, Kiner Falefa. So then it was, I think, 1st and 3rd, and then gives up a 2 RBI double to David Dahl, which, pretty much puts the game out of reach. It's 3-0 at that point. And so that cleared the bases. Man at second with 2 outs. You can still kind of get out of it, though. They intentionally walked Joey Gallo to put him on because obviously you don't want him coming up righty-lefty with a man in scoring position. But then, he's on base, obviously. And then Adolis Garcia comes up, and I thought it was a home run. It hit right off like the yellow tape over there in right field, I guess, where the wall kind of comes out. So I thought it was a home run. It bounces back into the field of play, and it looked like it was going to be an inside the park home run. They end up throwing him out at home, but the damage was already done as he knocks in a couple of runs on a 2 RBI triple, and that capped off a 4-run inning on 4 hits and made it 5-0 at that point, and certainly putting the game out of reach there. So just too many hits, too many extra base hits allowed for Mazza. We had the caller Jack earlier mention that none of the Bolt guys have really looked great. I would certainly double that point in Mazza. I believe he's pitched. I think this was his second game where he was pitching in kind of that bulk spot. I know he had back-to-back of those one-inning appearances where he looked okay. So looking back to his season, his first outing of the season, the 2 2/3 against Boston in that 11-2 loss, and he gave up 6 runs on 7 hits over those 2 2/3. So the multi-inning thing for Mazza has not been a success so far. Was just as bad, I would say, tonight. And then he was able to get, did give up a leadoff single, but did get out of the inning scoreless in the 8th. Just giving the bullpen some relief. Not that they really needed it, but they weren't in a winning position anyway, so why not save the arms? They've got Kittredge, they've got Thompson, Castillo, and I guess maybe Springs, Cody Reed in that discussion. So they've got guys. Obviously, it hurts having no Nick Anderson, no Pete Fairbanks, no Chaz Rowe. I forgot to mention him earlier. So they are missing those pieces. So I guess to keep them healthy right now is a good thing. And the guys that are coming into pitch bulk relief is pretty much just a garbage time, or they're making it garbage time by the time they're out of the game. And then Hunter Strickland pitched the final inning, and he looked pretty good. 1 inning clean, 1, 2, 3, 2 strikeouts as well. He had 2 innings, I think, of a run against the Yankees on Friday. So a guy in spring training that had not looked great. His first 2 outings of the regular season have been pretty good, not bad. So that pretty much closes the books on tonight's loss, 5-1 again. It was kind of strange. Josh Fleming getting the first loss of his major league career, Arihara getting the first win of his major league career. And so the Rays, the best they can do tomorrow is split the series, and that game will be at 7:10. It will be Jordan Lyles, the right-hander, going up against the lefty Rich Hill. Taking a look at Jordan Lyles, the 30-year-old right-hander is 1-0 on the season with a 4.50 ERA. His first start against the Royals was a win, 5 2/3 of 2 runs, a homer allowed, no walks, 8 strikeouts, and then his last time out against the Padres, 4 1/3, 3 runs on 6 hits, 2 homers allowed, 2 walks, 1 strikeout, and he's thrown about 76, 78 pitches in each start, so maybe right around that 80 pitch mark. We'll see, but I wouldn't imagine more than maybe 5 innings and 2 runs is what I would expect probably from him tomorrow. Hopefully the Rays offense is able to get going. And that actually reminds me of a stat that they put up on Bally Sports Sun on the telecast tonight. And it kind of validified my point that I think I made a couple nights ago, that it seemed in the early part of the season they couldn't score early and would score late. And then during this homestand especially, they've scored early and have been able to do basically nothing since. So in the first 5 home games, in innings 1 through 4, the Rays have scored 19 runs. From the 5th inning on, only 3 runs. And then in the 6 road games, innings 1 through 4, 5 runs, and then the 5th inning and after, 18 runs. So, I think that's more so the beginning of the season to where they are now, not really home road split. But if they're going to get to Jordan Lyles, obviously they're going to have to get on the board early, which is something they've not been able to do. Over the course of the first 3 games of the series, they've totaled only 4 runs scored, which is not great. 2 of them with only 1 run, and then they get the 2 runs in garbage time last night. So, we said this about Arihara, that he could potentially be a guy that they could get back on track against, but obviously he had shown to be kind of slippery as he was tonight. Jordan Lyles may be another candidate, a starter that's not fantastic that you can maybe start getting back on track against. And then Rich Hill, the 41-year-old left-hander from Boston, he is 1-0 with a 7.20 ERA. His last time out against the Yankees, getting his first win as a Ray, 6 innings, 4 runs on 4 hits, 7 strikeouts, no walks. The tale of 2 starts for Hill, because in the first start, the 4 innings of 4 runs against the Marlins was getting no swing and miss. At least every pitch, at the very least, was fouled off. And way too much contact against the Yankees. There was contact at times, but he was getting that swing and miss, was making Yankee hitters look foolish. Some power righties as well. So really a good sight from Rich Hill last time, and getting some big innings, 6 of them, in fact. So would like to see kind of the same from him tomorrow. But, even if he goes 5, the bullpen is in perfect shape right now. You've got guys on at least 2 or 3 days rest at this point. Kittredge, Cody Reed, Jeffrey Springs, Ryan Thompson, Castillo. Obviously, if they, let's say, Rich Hill gets 6 and they have the lead, the 7, 8, 9, at this point would probably be maybe Thompson, Reed, and Castillo. But obviously you need middle innings. Kittredge and Springs would be their guys. So even if they get 4 or 5 innings from Hill, they can still navigate it with the bullpen. And the last thing before we get out of here, the way the schedule looks, they've got the game against the Rangers tomorrow. No off day. They're in New York City against the Yankees Friday, Saturday, Sunday weekend series. Friday, it's a 7 o'clock game. Waka, or behind an opener with Waka, against Jordan Montgomery again. Saturday will be Glasnow versus Cole. And then Sunday will be Yarbrough versus Tyon. So as we are finishing up now our 3rd time through the rotation with the starters, we'll like to see them pitch well. I know the starting rotation was a bit of concern kind of the first time through, but they've, I think, gotten on track a little better. Would like to see Yarbrough maybe pitch a little better, but Sunday at the Bronx against the Yankees is not the spot that I would want to see him in. If he pitches poorly, as we said earlier, maybe he finds himself back in the bullpen. I don't know. I'm not sure they can afford that right now until maybe McClanahan, Honeywell, Patino are stretched out. I don't know exactly. I think they still want to be patient with those guys. Thank you, everyone who tuned into the show. We had a couple callers. I apologize for Patrick, if you're still listening, that we were not able to continue the call. It kind of cut out there a little bit. But yes, we'll be on the air tomorrow after the game. We'll see you then.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC